Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Annabelle Comes Home. Thank you, anybody, whoever watches or views anything that I do. I really do appreciate it. Where could you go to find this movie? Because some people may have it difficult to find this movie because it seems like a lot of people have seen this film through a lot of different apps that I have seen through time and space. A lot of weird times I would Google search or whatever something, and this thing would come up on some like popular thing. So, anyways, might as well check it out. I've checked out any of the other Conjuring universe movies, so let's check out this one. So, where could you go to find this movie? Go into an app called C Movies or Letter C Movies. Check this movie out. Or also, you can go into an app called Fox HG Movies. Go and Google search either one of these, and you should be able to find them fairly easily. How did I feel about Annabelle Comes Home? So, really, this is just the Conjuring victory lap, I feel. And what I mean by that is it's just like, hey man, like, we're going to heavily rely on the Conjuring movie to sell this one. Like, man, do they not go into much of the Annabelle thing? They just basically just say, oh, well, she's just a beacon now. And, like, everything else has to just scare you in this movie. Because the Warrens are to have a whole, basically, death room. And so we have to have desperately this one curious girl that is just going to defy the odds of just going like, you know what? Like, I should probably just have this thing called reason inside of my brain. But you know what? I'm just not today. It's not going to happen. Reason has just been flushed out the toilet. And you know what? Like, I think some of these Conjuring movies are probably based on true events or a true story or whatever. And I would probably say to a person, why so curious? If you're just gonna put like your life to just be forfeited because you just desperately wanted to speak to the afterlife, how about you just wait till you're soon going to be in afterlife because of your dumb decision, and then you could speak to the person of afterlife that you wanted to talk to right freaking away. Good grief, people. I hate overly curious people where you really just want to just be like, you know what, could I just duct tape this person to a chair and I'd have to go to jail after that, but at least like they wouldn't cause the ultimate like destruction of the world, because I think they're just that kind of stupid, because they're just too curious for their own good to just destroy the world with their inability to read heavily amounts of signs that say, hey, don't go in here, and hey, don't like open this thing, and hey, this is going to kill you, but you've gone too far anyways. So, honestly, there are some cheap scares in this movie. There's sound scares that, you know what? When somebody is yelling into a camera, you're probably going to get scared because person is going to be yelling into a camera. It's just the sound of something, like, always would actually just scare me because I'm like, cheap, cheapity cheap. I freaking hate that crap. Because it's just, like, you can't scare anybody but make a sound. Like, that is the freaking cheapest crap. I hate it. It feels like whoever did Annabelle Comes Home also did Annabelle Creations, because I'm seeing like that this movie has to rely on camera angles. And I'm like, God, this again. You and your camera angle, director, person, whoever, no offense, but like when you have that whole like double take freaking scene where go here, and then just be like, wow, there looks great. But you know what? I just want to come over here. But wait a minute, here over makes a sound, or over here makes a sound now, and I hate that. That is the cheapest, cheapity cheap scare, but also it's just like, why? Like, that just makes you just hate these kinds of movies because that part of the movie is dumb. Um, that movie is just like that part of that movie is just like, God, that's severely annoying to me. And I've seen two movies do that now. I never want to see a single movie ever do that again. So this movie honestly just becomes a Conjuring victory lap, where I mean, like, they basically, if you haven't seen the movie Conjuring, you probably might not understand this movie because you're just like, well, I saw Annabelle and I saw Annabelle Creations, and now I'm seeing Annabelle Comes Home, and I'm trying to figure out the connection. Well, you also would probably need to see The Conjuring and then see this movie, and then just be like, oh, okay, well, like Annabelle again becomes just this thing that is to just be there, and like everything else is just the actual, like, because we finally figure out in Annabelle Comes Home that Annabelle is just the beacon for the things that bump into the night. So everything that is to just scare people, like they've now just said now in this movie that it's like, well, really, Annabelle the doll is just a lazy piece of and like everything has to now help Annabelle's doll out because they just really feel bad for her. Like, man, we want to make this movie really sweet, so we're gonna help her. We feel bad, um, and I feel bad saying that because freaking like I don't want anything coming and bumping me in the night or haunting me, freaking, because like somebody like has some dark spells of magic and power, and they're gonna come after me now. Like I've had a run of something, but it's been not good luck. And so, like, hey man, you want to freaking want to send something my way, dude? I've had you know, come on, man. Anyways, so haunting things aside or whatever. So like the beacon thing I thought was actually a cool idea. I'm like, you know what, that's that like maybe like I didn't like that they did it with Annabelle, but if they could have done it with anything else, I would have just been like, man, that was actually a good thing. But with it being Annabelle, and I'm just like, oh, so that's like they couldn't have done that right away. They couldn't have just like said that right away through any number of these movies. Like they just had to wait till now to just figure this thing out. Years later. To where it's gonna probably be the very last Annabelle movie that's just called Annabelle. Because I don't think Annabelle is gonna have another one of the. If they do, it's just like, man, people just love Annabelle. I guess a lot of people do because it's freaking popular in whatever places. So, uh, but yeah, there's of course another flimsy story that really for me, I'm like, it doesn't feel like it's heavily on the exorcism in this film, but uh, like this movie tries to go out of its way to scare people, so I can appreciate that for um, this movie doing that. Even though there are parts where I complain that the scares are cheap, at least they're really trying to go out of the way to try to give somebody the scares. Uh, like we bizarrely had like a werewolf in this movie. Like I'll say that. Uh, for whatever reason, like for whatever reasons, we just have a number of things in this movie go on. Just kitchen sink of horror in this one. Just throw everything at this one, because money, and just throw money into this movie. I don't know why, but just keep continuing to just throw it in there. Uh, but yeah, so like I think that's all I wanted to say about this movie in a very cryptic like sense. Flimsy story, but at least this will probably be the last adventure of Annabelle for me. If there ever is going to be another one, I'm like, well, I probably like am not going to watch that one. I probably won't watch that one. I'll watch any of the give me the Conjuring threes or fours or whatever the heck that they whatever else that they're doing to randomly just add to this Conjuring universe of things, just to slap a thing to just desperately like try to get money into another project. But let's just go into the spoilers of this movie. And so let's go out of our way to say it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So this is like this extended version of the Conjuring movie. Basically, go ahead and everyone watch Conjuring, and then you just be like, yeah, Conjuring, the extended version. So the very beginning of Conjuring, the scene in there is to basically just be replayed in the very beginning of this, where we have all the girls who are to have had Annabelle in their house, and like the doll goes from one door to the other door, and then because it feels like they're playing, these girls are being ding dong ditched on, and no, it's just the doll. So they give it to both Lorraine and Ed Warren, and so what ends up happening is this couple ends up going and driving on home with this doll, and so it seems that they end up going and spotting that there was like an accident on the road, and so the police officer is to tell them like, hey, like if you just get on this exit and turn on this whatever thing, you'll be fine. So the two Warrens eventually go and do what this police officer says, but eventually they start to get lost, and all of a sudden, coincidentally, out of all the places to be parked next to, uh, like I think there's a graveyard right next to him. It looks like a graveyard. I can't be sure about that. It just looks like a creepy place. Anyone will probably just say, yeah, it was a graveyard. Just come on. So Ed is to all of a sudden be parked in this spot because the car had started to malfunction. So he's like, I'll check under the hood. So all of a sudden, Lorraine is to see this one spirit. And so Lorraine is telling this girl that she was in a car accident, and probably should have told her to say, hey, like, you should probably just move on now. You should probably go into heaven, because I'm sure you might head there. Like, just go towards the light. Like, and if whatever happens after that happens. But so, all of a sudden, Lorraine is to start to kind of look and eventually start to see that there's like a group of ghosts just making their way closer to Annabelle. Ed is to eventually go and fix the car and push down the hood of the car to have all the ghosts just be behind him. And then all of a sudden we have Ed, who ends up getting freaking like pushed quite a few feet. And so Lorraine is to tell Ed, like, yeah, I think this Annabelle doll, like, I think it's a beacon to push all these ghosts towards us. And so it's like, wow, that sucks. Because Ed is to have fallen, and all of a sudden we have this truck that goes out of control and almost hits Ed, but Ed luckily gets out of the way just in time. And so the driver of this truck is like, oh man, like my car just completely lost control weirdly. Because, like, Annabelle had died, or the person who went into the the thing of Annabelle had died almost the exact same way. So I guess it was Ed's turn, but Ed dodged that whole thing. Why didn't that girl just dodge the car like Ed did then? This whole movie wouldn't have been a thing then. Come on, girl, get with it. Like, God, that sounds awful. It's like, man, I hope no one ever gets ran over by a vehicle in their life. Uh, Especially how many numerous times that I see somebody get freaking run down by a bus or something. It's awful. Uh, so if anything, we have both Lorraine and Ed eventually making their way home. And so we, of course, have Ed and Lorraine getting a priest who's like doing his thing to bless Annabelle, so that way, uh, like she doesn't go and try to get at them. Supposedly, there's this like Star Wars crawl of this stuff where is to mention it's like, well, yeah, out of all the stuff that all the Warrens have, there's only one thing that is worse than all of them, and that is to be Annabelle. So, pretty much the rest of this movie is to be carried by a little girl named Judy, who I guess is going to be currently in the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie. So good for her. She did something after this movie. So Judy Warren, who like they have no time for the parents, they now have to just focus in on Judy and have her carry this whole movie. Like, man, I can't wait for the Warrens' twice removed uncle to just come in here and be like, man, I want a whole story about me. Come on. Like, I want to have my whole spin-off of a movie. Come on. Give it to me. I want my whole spin-off. So we find Judy is to be babysitted by a girl named Mary, who is going to regret that decision for the rest of her freaking life. So, so Mary is to eventually go and get groceries to eventually make a cake because it's Judy's birthday soon. And so Judy is to go to school and have a kid make fun of her because who her parents are. And it seems like this is going to be a girl that's going to be like that forever alone girl just because like, oh, well, your parents like are Ghostbusters or have ghosts or like your house is haunted. I'm never going to be friends with you. Like we have this one girl, or we have this one boy that is to give Judy crap about, like, you know what? That's probably easily why Judy was probably like quickly, like, hey, we're definitely gonna have you in Ghostbusters Afterlife because you've been in a Conjuring movie, like Annabelle Comes Home. You've been in that. Wow, like we desperately need this girl to be in this Ghostbusters Afterlife movie. So so Judy is to have this kid who is to say possession like wrong. He says like, yeah, your parents are obsessed. You mean possessed? Whatever, it's all the same, right? So Judy is to try to make friends, and she can't until the very end of this movie. Coincidentally, there's a billion people that all of a sudden is like, hey, Judy, we're going to be here for your birthday party for reasons. So, so Mary goes and gets this cake and everything for Judy's early birthday party. So, just to make this girl feel good. So, we have this girl who is to be Daniela, who is to also come to this house, and she is the most curious of curious people. So much so that I'm just like, you know what? Could we just not have this person in this movie? This person just is like if somebody is telling you no a million different ways in Sunday, it's like, well, like I just need to do this anyways. Great idea. I hope you die during it. So Daniela is to ask Judy about like, hey, like your parents have like some spooky, scary crap, right? And Judy's like, yeah, there's like a whole room that's dedicated in memory to every single spooky, scary thing in our lives. And so Daniela's like, well, I gotta figure out where that room is because I need to go and I need to just do something stupid. So Daniela is to find this room, but she finds that it's a room that's locked. So she has to go out of her way to find where the keys are in this home. Here's one thing, Warren family. Never have a single key in your home for scary room. I don't care what happens. Frickin' don't have an extra set of keys in that house anywhere, or like put together like a whole like secret hidden place where like you have the key like behind a bookshelf, and then do that. Like have it be like some like fake rock or something you have this key under, so that way no one is ever going to find it besides the Warren family. Because good God. So Daniela goes into this room, unlocks everything, goes right in, and so what she ends up trying to do is she ends up trying to speak with her father, who is dead. So she has a picture of her father, and she's like, Dad, if you're here, let me know in the comments below. So all of a sudden we have Annabelle, who ends up like falling over and smacking against this glass thing that she's being like held encased in. And so Daniela is just thinking like, yeah, that must be my dad just having like knocked against this glass. So what I think I should do is I should open up this uh this glass thing that says do not open. For the love of everyone, do not open this thing. And Danielle's like, you know what? I really just gotta open this up. I just gotta just do this. Because for the life of me, it just needs to happen. So this girl opens this thing up, props this doll back, and then all of a sudden she is to think that she closed this door really good. All of a sudden she hears a sound and then runs out, and then Annabella again goes and bumps her head into this glass to have us realize that this door wasn't all the way closed. So now Annabelle is outside of this glass thing. And so I'm just like, God, friggin'. You have to rest upon yourself that people make stupid decisions, because in every horror movie there is to be a dumb person that uh, that is to just end the world because of their stupid decision, or kill a number of people because they were the one that desperately needed to say that stupid magical incantation, or been that curious person that had to open a book that did need to get opened, The Mummy, that I just recently saw. Freaking people. So, so they go back and they are to make this cake, and so we have Judy who's like licking the frosting consistently, like she's licking the like she's like taking her finger and putting it all over the bowl and everywhere. She's just like, my fingers are everywhere. I'm like, did you wash your hands recently? Did you recently wash your hands, Judy? Because she's just like touching everywhere with this frosting. And so, but what ends up happening is Mary is to have accidentally burnt the cake. And so Judy is just like, well, just slap some frosting on it. No one will know the difference. Like, nobody's going to really come to my birthday, anyways. Like, there's not going to be a lot of people eating that pie or the cake or whatever, so it's perfectly fine. So, eventually, what ends up happening is, like, slowly but surely, uh, what really just starts to pop out first is we have this wedding dress. So this wedding dress thing is to have been, I guess, from a bride that had murdered a ton of people. And I guess there has been a spirit thing of that. And so Judy is to eventually see that in her home and just be like, okay, something spooky's going on here, something's going wrong. So eventually Judy has to tell both the girls about this thing going on. And so Daniela is just like, well, maybe something got out of that room, the room that you were talking to me about, and like like so Judy goes to the room and is to see that Annabelle is not in this thing. And so it's just like, oh no, she got out. So we just continue to play around with this thing. So this room eventually just gets, like, everything all just gets out and just causes a ruckus. Everything is to just come after these girls. And eventually we get eventually at one point Mary is needing like asthma, an inhaler for asthma, and so Judy has to go out to the car, and all of a sudden there's like a werewolf on top of the car, and he's like ripping through the door or ripping through the car, and like, and so Judy is scrambling for the inhaler, and so Judy ends up like trying to run into the house because weirdly Mary's boyfriend is going and defending Judy against this werewolf, because when Mary was to order pizza, Mary's boyfriend was to be there, and the pizza guy is to just be giving this kid like girlfriend advice, where he's just like, hey man, you need to woo her. What pizza guy would just be like, you know what, like, I'm doing a job right now, but I also need to take a guy under my wing and tell him dating advice, because I'm sure this guy is like married with 85 kids and like everything's peachy and whatever. But this kid is just like, hey man, like, thanks for the advice. And so he ends up deciding to like sing her a little song that he doesn't know like barely any of the words with, but like just the effort is a nice thing. So eventually things are to get bumping in the night, I guess, let's just say. And so, like, I'm going to go in a very roundabout way of reviewing this. Everything is not going to be in perfect sequence and whatever, but I'll try to do the best I can, because there's just a lot of crap that just all happens in this one. Because we eventually have Daniela that ends up going back into the room because she's still hoping that, oh man, I still hope that I can talk to my dad, and it seems like a lot of scary crap is happening in this room now. So Daniela is to just be like, you know what? I'm going to still try to talk to my dad. And so all of a sudden, what ends up happening is eventually the piano is to do a couple little notes. And so she heads over there and is like starting to play the notes, and then all of a sudden we see Ghost Hand that is also playing a couple notes. And so Daniela is to look in the mirror and to see her father. And so of course Daniela has to go and actually look at her dad, which is always the best thing to do in a ghost movie, right? So when she does that, that's when we have like Daniela's dad who's like yelling at her, which is like, man, that's so just like having to forcibly be a scary thing because loud voice, which is cheap, but like really between that and the one like clapping of the one like stupid thing in this room, like those are probably the only actually like scary moments for me, just because I hate sound scares because they're cheap. But like you have to jump at them because it's just like loud noise. Like it's not because, oh, this was actually scary. It's like, oh no, this thing was way too loud, and I guess that did scare me. But like anything else than other those two parts, nothing was scary in this film. If anything, I was just kind of like getting like, man, this is a long movie, even though it isn't. It's like an hour and 40 some odd minutes. But I'm like, man, this is just a long movie. Like a lot of just buildup of scares. Like there's a lot of scare buildup in this movie. So, but that's not all. So Daniela has to go and sit in front of this mimic TV thing where Daniela is to sit in front of this TV, and this TV does what she's going to do in the future. So Daniela does everything that this TV is going to have her do and whatever. So this girl is to get freaked out, but that's not going to be all. Eventually, Daniela is to be visited by the ghost of bridal past and go and uh, basically climb on top of Danielle and just give her a good old batch of blood into her mouth, or whatever demon possessional thing into her mouth, which is freaking just, God, why do they have to do that in every single one of these movies? It's so freaking gross, and that's the reason why they do it. But still, like, can we just assume that you're gonna just go blah in the girl's mouth and possess her? Like, do we have to go with that scene? Couldn't you just have the sound of blah blah going in the mouth? Like, why do we always have to show it? Because it's always gross. So, so this leads us into like both Judy and Mary have to get scared. So, uh, so we get spots here where, Mary is to eventually like the whole house is to bizarrely go dark. Mary has this flashlight that, of course, has to be extremely flimsy because aren't all flashlights just extremely flimsy in a horror movie world where it's just like, man, whatever light that I have is going to be like, if like this light just runs on like, on the energy of my body, like it's gonna still go out no matter what. Like if my energy is to be tied with this light and it should be like be the brightest flashlight in the world, no, it's still gonna just dim out because it's in horror genre movie. So so what ends up happening is we have these quarters that end up rolling around in front of Mary, which I'm just like, dude, I've seen the CM Punk film Girl on the Third Floor, and I'm like, man, this is like the exact same thing from that, where we have all, like, in the Girl on the Third Floor, we have, like, these marbles that are, like, rolling around in the house. like through the entire movie, where I'm just like, okay, great, now we're having that thing in here, where we just have these quarters that keep dropping because these spirits who just like can't take the time to just go to an arcade and just like toss those things in there and just like, hey, let's play this. Let's play Mortal Kombat as Street Fighter or some other thing. So we have these people that have a lot of quarters on their mind, let's just say. And so every time that these ghosts vanish, you just see these quarters dropping onto the ground. So I'm like, great. So this part wasn't scary. It just got really just like kind of like I was just like, here's the wind up and the pitch, but then I was like, give it to me already. Give me the scare. Do it. Do it. Do it now. Like I'm desperately like Arnold Schwarzenegger from the Predator movie. Do it. Do it now. Do the scare now. Do it. I'm desperately waiting for it and it never happens. So this girl just keeps going down this stretch of hallway, and eventually this leads to all of a sudden this girl seeing these people with quarters on their eyes, and they're bizarrely in these coffins now. Sure. And then when we have this one blonde girl who is to have this Annabelle doll in front of her, and so Mary is now wanting to like desperately grab away this Annabelle from this coffin girl. And so I'm just like, well, Mary's gonna be dead now, right? Like, it would be cool. Like, Mary is kind of an attractive girl, but friggin', like, she's toast, right? Like, so all of a sudden we just see, like, Judy, and I'm like, okay, so Judy's gonna be the only one left now. Everyone's gonna be dead. It's gonna be cool. Like freaking, like it's okay. Like I'll see that only Judy is gonna be the only one that exists. But then all of a sudden we just have Annabelle that just comes flying out of this darkness, and I'm just like, really? Like I wasn't scared at that. It was just like this is stupid. Like just an Annabelle doll just comes flying out of the darkness. I'm like, what is this? Like, come on. So Mary is just like, yeah, Annabelle doll jumping out of the dark. Isn't that scary? No, it's not. So I'm gonna have to think I'm gonna pause here. I'm kind of making a little with this chair, so let me pause here for a second. Well, I hit the wrong button. But yeah, but I had my chair like way too close to the wall, and it was just yeah, it's gonna continue to make noise until you adjust your seat. So I did so. So uh, so now we are to really just figure out that Annabelle should go back into her little cage thing, and so that's where Judy is like, you know what? We gotta go and do that. So the Mary and Judy are making their way to this room, and like we're having all kinds of things just consistently appear while things are going on. We also had Judy at one point trying to sleep, and F that, F her trying to sleep. Like the girl went to bed, and Mary adjusted her bed, and like the Annabelle doll just appeared from the sheets, and so Mary left, and Judy was trying to sleep, and so all of a sudden, like we have the Conjuring moment where the girl is getting like dragged out of the bed, and then once the girl like wakes up and is like, "Hey, somebody's dragging me out of the bed," or out of the bed, and so all of a sudden we have this grudge moment where Judy is to like feel something from like or see like this big like lump in her covers to obviously say there's somebody playing around in these sheets. So of course Judy is to like open up the covers and see what else is down there, And so at first we just see the Annabelle doll, but then after that, shortly, we see like a ghost that tries to get at Judy. I'm like, man, I just like I've seen The Grudge fairly recently, and like they're just really just going at that kind of thing. They're doing that kind of like scare maneuver, which I'm sorry, I think The Grudge did it a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Like, plus, like they need to be a little bit quicker with the scares. Like, don't do the build up scares. Come on, like build up scares are just like, well, where is it going to come at? I know because wait for it and boom, there it is. Like get to it right away. Um but yeah, so we have Judy who is bizarrely dealing with this horn like character, this devil esh like character that is to like come after her. And so that just leads her to go with Mary. And so they're just like, dude, we have to go to this room, get this doll, put it in the room, and call it a day. So that just leads to having every single item in their brother like starting to scare some of these characters. Like we have this weird, bizarre like samurai outfit that is to like adjust its head to uh just consistently look at Mary because this samurai outfit is just like, you know what, this girl looks thumbs up. And so, like, the samurai thing is just like tilting its head to consistently follow this girl to the point of it's just like wanting to just like consistently like look at this girl, and it's so like weird, and so because it has to be, but but that samurai thing is not going to get a slice of that pie. Come on, like she's already taken for obviously. There's a guy who's drumming away at a guitar that is to like just win this girl over, and no other thing will ever be quite as good as guitar guy who kind of can come up with a couple words of some song some days. Who knows? So, anyways, Mary and Judy are to almost get this doll in this locked case, and I'm like, there's got to be something here that prevents them from doing it or doing this. Like, where is that going to come from? And we also had a moment where Judy was in the room with Daniela and Mary, and there was to be this projector there that they turned on by accident, and Judy is like, "Oh, turn that off," like, because it's like her dad doing something creepy, so she didn't want to see it. So we find out that Daniela is Ghost Bride, and she has a knife in her hand. I'm like, oh, that's going to be the thing that prevents them from getting this Annabelle thing in the clear. Like, this has got to be the thing. Like, I was like, here's the wind up in the pitch of waiting for something to, like, stop these girls from, like, getting this. Like, there has to be some more time to kill here. So, uh, so what ends up happening is that Judy is to deal with Anna or Daniela, and what she does is she ends up turning the projector on, and so now her father is trying to exorcise some demon on a projector film. And so, with him saying what he's saying over and over and over again, all of a sudden that is to work on Daniela, where all of a sudden she's getting exorcised via a film on a projector. Which I'm like, wait a minute. So, dude, you don't even need a priest to even be there now. You can just have projector film of some person exorcising somebody, Like, man, we could just, this exorcism thing is going to be way easier from here on out. We should just be doing that for the rest of our lives. Just, hey guys, like if you're ever dealing with a Linda Blair situation, just here's a video. There you go. Like we'll put it on Netflix somewhere or Hulu, so like it's always there just in case you just have that flare up of possession. Just freaking just put this like how to exorcism somebody video on and just hit play and like demon will come out. Weirdly enough. So Daniela loses the bride ghost from out of her, and so now we're still scrambling to get this doll into this glass thing and this glass case. So they're just having a tough time like getting the thing locked, or there's a lock already on and they're going to try to unlock it to try to like lock it back in and whatever. So eventually Daniela is to just kind of like press the door to get it completely closed. So all the girls are just pressing against the thing to have it be closed, and so it locks, and then everything is to seemingly be put back to normal. Like, even though, like, there was this one spot where, like, I kind of thought that Daniela was to get, like, sucked into that TV because she was, like, spending so much time looking at it. Like, but then eventually she's just, like in the fetal position in that room to be waited to get bride possessed. Like, yeah, I thought Daniela was done for because, like, that's what happens when you're curious. So, eventually, the Warden family are to come home after all of this is to be over, coincidentally. Perfect timing, parents. So, Mary is just to tell everybody, like, you know what, just tell them all the truth. Tell them everything. Like it's better to do that than have to like lie your way and then just be caught with something. So so Lorraine and Ed are to throw their daughter a birthday party, and so Ed is putting on this like birthday hat, and Judy's like, "Don't put that on. Like, freaking no one's gonna come. Like, who cares?" Like, so all of a sudden, Mary and Daniela come, and then after that, like a billion other kids all of a sudden come because maybe like Mary and whoever just bribed a bunch of kids. I don't know. So all the kids just come flooding in, and so like Judy is feeling great about her birthday party. So Lorraine is to pull Daniela aside, and I'm not even knowing if I'm even pronouncing that name correctly because I just whatever. So Lorraine is to bring her into that room and just be like, "Yeah, I bet you want to spend another second in this room." I bet you want to go and unlock something, don't you? That's what I would have freaking said. I would have asked her. Like, so, Lorraine is to say that the main reason that she is to come into this room and see all the evil that is surrounding her within this room is to make her reflect on the fact that everything on the outside of this room is everything that is good. So it's like, okay, so there's like an equilibrium or a balance or whatever where like she is to see like everything that is bad in this room to realize that there is everything better outside of it, because like she's done a good deed and that she is doing the right thing by having this one room because it saved so many lives, or it is gone on to create so much good from the evil that is kept in this room. So Lorraine is to also give Daniela back the picture of her and her father, and also Lorraine is to tell Daniela about her dad and some stuff that he had said. And Daniela is like, "Oh, well, did somebody else tell you to just kind of say that?" And Lorraine is like, "No, your dad did." And it's like, "Oh, well, that's a nice sentiment to have this person not get this reward out of the stupid crap that she did." But like, you got to give it to her, right? Like, hey man, you got like one last little thing that your father is to ever tell you. So that's really the way that this movie is just to like fizzle out, is to have this whole birthday party, and like I'm sure it's probably to lead to yet another movie that eventually is going to come our way, um, either Conjuring 2 or something. But anyways, with that said, I think I am going to get out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, however it ends up turning out, because there's probably going to be some editing in my future forcibly to fuse two clips together. So, without a doubt, thank you for watching this, but I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.